The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced?
Stop right there!
From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you, listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
They let us play with all our toys, they let us think that we're big boys, they let us make a lot of noise, but we ain't rule the world. They let us think we're Superman.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you. I will stop till I reach the top just to be there with you.
Dave, oh Dave, are you playing with Bigfoot and aliens again?
Dad, you gotta stop haunting the ghost. It's scaring them.
All right, seriously, put down the pointy sticks.
Okay! Game on!
Game on!
Game on!
The password is...
All right.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you.
Seriously, Dave? Really? Aren't you a little old for a tinfoil hat?
Hello, Toby. Bye-bye. Love you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, just please take your seat on my way. We'll let the edge. It's clear for pickup. Start. 2, 1. Boost ignition and lift off.
I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. The deeper I go, the deeper I fall. Yeah, the deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. It's great to have you along for the ride on this Friday, December 1st, Saturday, December 2nd. If you're on the East Coast or across the pond, hope you had a great day and night. We are here, right here in the Great White North, on top of the mountains of central British Columbia, as we are here for your listening needs 7 days a week. We welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of the Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We are live also at spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, KTLK, TheFringe.fm, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Like our music? Get your horns up for Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy and Sons of Apollo. Bumblefoot is the official sound of Spaced Out Radio. Now, you can follow us all over social media. Try us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our new YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio. Listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States. TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows from iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. And if you head on over to patreon.com, for as low as $1 a month, you can become a patron of SOR as well. We have 2 chat rooms for you to participate in if you want to get questions into the show. You either got to be signed up into Spreaker or into the SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook. Or if you're on Twitter, use the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. I will get to your questions in there as well. Now, if you head to our website for $5 a month, you can become a member of the SOR Space Travelers Club. You can also shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Read The Encounter online, dealing with everything strange, odd, and paranormal. You can check out my latest blog, and if you've had an experience you can't explain, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. We also got great videos from Leslie Mitchell Clark's Contact TV and Tim Doyle's UFO Seekers. We start off year number 4 of this show tonight with a familiar voice joining us. Year number 4 coincides with a very good friend of this show, R. Keith Andrews, and his monthly journey into the alien realm that we call around here the ET experience. Keith is a lifelong experiencer who helps people break down and understand the experiences they are having in their personal lives. In fact, I was contacted by a lady today who needed advice on what to do, as she wasn't sure if she had been taken or not. Now, if you heard her story, and if it's true, it's one hell of a case of alien abduction. And that's why we're here. Tonight, we're getting into the grays, downloads, are they real, and we're going to look at fake alien news that's out there as well. Mr. Keith, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, my friend, your final appearance of 2017. Hard to believe that already, my friend. How are you?
Not bad at all. Thank you very much for having me, and welcome to all the listeners from everywhere. I mean, let's face it. I heard somebody say something about you not being a player, and I'm thinking, you're global. Well, in all fairness, you're more than that.
Oh, yes. But we should actually share that story. Normally I don't get into the whole political realm, but I made the mistake of going on my friend's Facebook page and mentioning something about our Prime Minister, because around here I haven't been very keen towards the Canadian Prime Minister and the job he's done, considering I voted for the guy. And this dude, who I've never met before, starts carving me an absolute new one, saying I don't have my facts, I don't have my information. So, here's the funny part, and this is where it includes all of you. Here's the funny part. I said, but it started off with him calling me a nobody. Which is true. On a planet of 7.6 billion people, I pretty much am a nobody. But I said, my family loves me. I'm a pretty good dad. And I have 150,000 listeners a night, 140, 150,000 a night, that listen to us. So I'm a little confused here. So the next thing I know, he goes on this Facebook rant, grabs our statistics from Spreaker, grabs our statistics from our brand new YouTube channel that we've had to just recreate, and says, yeah, you obviously can't read numbers. And this guy starts telling me about his radio station in Toronto, and how awesome he is, and how I'm a nobody, I'm a never was. It was a great way to start year number 4. But you know what? My friend came to my defense, and I'm very proud of that. So, but if you're in the East Coast area and you want to drop Zoomer Radio a line, go for it. Go for it. Actually, don't start the pissing match. I'm going to share you the story, but this guy was with this radio show, Richard Sirrett, who is an incredible radio host in the paranormal, sometimes hosts Coast to Coast. He's on that station, so don't worry about it. But I mean, there's idiots out there, my friends. There's idiots out there, and when they insult the show, they insult all of us. So I kept going back at him, and I got the final word in, which was nice.
See, I always find the final word is easiest if you just push it. You push that funny little button that says hang up. Because I came to the conclusion that the last word is often the one not said.
Oh, yeah, no. See, this is where hockey rules come into play. So I had to get that last word in, which I did.
I see. See, yeah. I don't watch hockey. Yeah, here I am, one of the few Canadians that look at hockey and go, why?
Well, you know what? One day we may teach you how to be a man, my friend. We may teach you how to be a man.
Yeah, not with my leg.
I know. So that, that's one of those scenarios where, this guy, he was just, telling me how awesome he is. And I said, so you're going to insult my budding radio show, all my listeners, my family. You're going to bully me? Is that what it's coming down to? You're going to bully me? And that's where I used a few expletives and called him a hero, because people who do that, they're real heroes in their life, So I just kind of laughed. So that's it. Case dismissed.
Yeah, the funny thing is, and, I see it in every race, quite literally. And, the sad reality is you cannot make yourself seem better by making somebody else seem worse. As a matter of fact, it actually has the opposite effect.
No, you know what, though, Keith? It was the typical businessman in Toronto attitude. I'm sure they get it in the United States, probably in New York, the Manhattan area. They get that attitude where I'm better than you because I'm working in Manhattan. It's the same thing up here in Canada with Toronto. A lot of people in Toronto feel their crap doesn't stink, especially if they're in the finance end or media type end, and it's ridiculous. So I had a good chuckle with this guy. My depression and anxiety started to creep in, where I'm like, what if this guy is right? What if my show does suck? But this is, I realize what you guys are going to say. I'm not looking for sympathy or empathy in the chat rooms. I'm just telling you what goes through the mind when you suffer from depression and anxiety, and many of you will understand what I'm getting at there. But there was a little bit of sense for about half an hour, 45 minutes. I thought, my God, this guy is right. I am a nobody. But then I thought, no, screw him. I have 140, 150,000 people who listen to this show a night. And if I'm a nobody as the host in the captain's chair, my audience is a bunch of nobodies. And you know what? They're not nobodies, Keith. These are good people. These are
absolutely
good and, intelligent people.
The funny thing that I always look at, and I fight my own battle with depression. Everybody has some sort of trigger. In my case, it's money, or lack thereof.
So,
but the thing that I find is people go, when he says, you're a nobody, and this applies to everybody. that gets told, oh, you're a nobody, or made to feel that way. Just understand one very important factor. In a country, on a planet of, I think you said 7.6 billion people?
Yes, he's one.
The massive majority of those billions of people are not in the upper echelon, and therefore, according to the upper echelon, which is maybe 0.005%.
Yep.
Right?
You know what?
They're pointing out that you're one of the real big people.
Well, I appreciate that. You know what? I got to tell you guys, if you guys, as my listening audience, want to get involved with this little scenario that was insulted by us earlier today, I have the perfect solution. If everybody wants to help me seek revenge on this guy, I got the perfect solution. I want every one of my listeners, I don't care where you are, if you're in Seattle, if you're in Arkansas, if you're in Florida, if you're in Halifax, wherever you may be, I want you to email Zoomer Radio AM 740 in Toronto, and I want you to, nothing insulting, but let's hit them where it hurts. Let's get all of our fans, and I'm saying there's got to be like more than 10 here, people, more than 10. But let's everybody start emailing that station and saying, you guys are silly if you don't pick up Spaced Out Radio. It's Canada's best radio show, and it's one of the best in North America when it comes to these topics. That's what we do for revenge, people. I think it's a perfect revenge. Kill them with kindness. Nothing insulting or defamatory or call the guy out, because I haven't given you his name either. He just works there. Okay? He just works there. But let's get him back. Everybody who is listening to this, email Zoomer Radio and say, hey, we want Spaced Out Radio on Zoomer Radio starting at midnight Eastern Time. That's what I want. If you guys could get me a 50, 100 people, that's all it would really take. Nothing more. And just email the living hell out of that station to the program director saying, hey, get Spaced Out Radio on there. That would be absolutely perfect. Or if you're on Twitter, hit them up with get them on Spaced Out Radio. Get Spaced Out Radio on your station. Muji Boy is asking.
Dave?
Yeah. What's up, Keith?
Considering where that could have gone, that is an absolutely brilliant idea. And it's very much a way of handling it. Considering what you could have done with that whole idea. But getting 150,000 people to send emails to these people and politely requesting them put SOR on their roster, quite frankly, it's one of those things that in one sense you can call it revenge. On the other hand, it is much more accurately referred to as advertising.
Yeah.
But it's the cheapest type of advertising on the planet. It's called word of mouth.
So what you have to do is you got to go to their website, zoomerradio.ca. Okay? And you got to scroll right down to the bottom where it says contact us. And then you fill out their contact form. Okay? So make sure you put in station inquiries. All right? Make sure you do that in the drop-down box. That's zoomerradio.ca. Right? Don't mention any names. We're not trying to get them to whine or anything like that, because you know what? I mean, looking at their programming, I actually listened to this station earlier today, and they're not bad. I kind of dig the old music. I really do. I dig the old music. They get into a lot of the old, 40s and 50s, and to me, that's just a lost art. Right? It was just a lost art.
Oh, that was a period of music that was definitely an era unto itself.
Absolutely. But the whole point is, Joe Roop has put it in on Spreaker's chat room. It's zoomerradio.ca/contact. So here this guy was insulting all of you, our affiliates, like the Fringe.fm, UPRN, WQEE, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, Renegade Talk Radio, Revolution Radio, and it's just getting, ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So my weird night continued. I was chatting with Jamie Sexton about an hour and a half ago, as I got into the office and started prepping for tonight's show. And I promise we will get into aliens. Okay? So all of a sudden, this dude on my Facebook, I don't know who he is. I've never got a message from him before. At 8:04 p.m. my time, so this is an hour and 16 minutes ago, this guy types in capital letters, the letter U, the letter R, and then hot. You are hot. And then sends me a blue thumbs up. So now I'm in a conundrum here because apparently I'm a nobody in Toronto, and now I got some dude in Cape Coral, Florida, hitting on me. I'm sure he'll be upset to know that, I'm a straight white guy.
Well, he may not have any problem with you being white, but the straight could be depressing.
Exactly. So here I am trying to figure out what do I do. So I said to Jamie Sexton, I said, what do I do? Because, Jamie's been known to play the field once or twice. And he goes, yeah, you better ignore that. So I haven't messaged him back. I went from a nobody to feeling kind of sexy there, Keith. Not going to lie.
As the saying goes, and don't take this the wrong way, anybody out there, but quite seriously, better you than me.
Oh, hey, I got no problem. I got, some of my best friends are gay. I got no issue.
I got no problem with that side of it at all. As far as that goes, I mean, frankly, I'm not. But, as far as I'm concerned, they're just another group of people. They're people. Who really cares? They want the same thing everybody else wants. And when I mean everybody, I'm talking the, humans, Greys, Strazazians, you name it, they all want the same thing. I just get
one second here. I just Keith, you're cutting out. Keith, you're cutting out.
Yeah, but humans have a tendency.
Keith, you're cutting out horribly right now.
So are you.
Weird.
So are you.
Okay, there.
No, that's good.
One second, guys. I just want to mention, if you are messaging Zoomer Radio, we're not mentioning that one of their representatives downplayed my show or you guys tonight. Don't mention that whatsoever. We're not trying to turn this into a trolling thing. Okay? We're not turning it into a trolling thing. We're going to say to them, everybody gets on there and says, hey, keep it positive. Okay? Keep it positive. Don't mention the trolling thing. Just keep it positive and say, look, this is the show we want to listen to on Zoomer Radio. That's the best way we can insult them, is keeping it positive. And if they say yes, well, we'll get on in Toronto. I'm okay with that. Right? Just hit them hard, but don't mention the fact that, one of their representatives downplayed what we do here. Keep it positive. And hammer them. All right, Keith. Sorry, had to get that through.
That's okay. I'll forgive you. I don't know if they will, but that's not my issue.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyhow, make sure you do it. Make sure you get out there and do that. Keith, I want to talk some aliens here for a second, because one of the things that I have been very, very, I don't even know how to put it. I've been thinking about this topic quite a bit in regards to everybody on my Facebook. Not everybody, but there's a lot of people out there who are saying, you know, they're getting these downloads from aliens. That seems to be one of the trending things that's going on. And have you noticed that?
Oh, I've been watching that for years, and I get a kick out of it in a sense. And don't get me wrong, downloads happen. Okay. But quite frankly, a good 90-95% of so-called downloads are more accurately somebody getting an aha. Okay. Downloads are, because, and I do agree with you, it seems to be a trendy thing. Mind you, in all fairness, I've been being told about downloads because of the industry I'm in. I've been getting told about downloads by people for 20 years. Right. And the reality behind downloads is, first and foremost, they aren't usually downloads are not just a case of a sudden insight into the way society should be. Point in fact, and I have had, in all the years I've been doing this, in all the years I've been on this planet, I've only had a handful of downloads, one of which literally gave me the schematics for a neural enhancer. Now, I got the information, I sketched out what it was, and the whole 9 yards, wrote down all the information. I looked at what I'd written down and went, well, what the heck does that mean? And I went and had to talk to an actual scientist to find out what this reference code was. Because I'm looking at it going like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? Most so-called downloads that people get are more lines of, we have to be nice to each other, or quite frankly, I get a lot of people that tell me, I had this download that says we're going to war. That's not a download. Downloads do not. It's not like they're trying to start an interstellar war here. Okay, so you've got two different types of downloads that I'm aware of. There are the legitimate ones, and they do happen. So we don't, the thing I really caution people working in this industry, and I know you get a lot, you just said you get lots there, Dave, but you got to be careful you don't just categorically dismiss somebody that says, I got a download. But you got to look at what it was and where, how it came about, like what they were doing, in order to figure out whether or not we're dealing with an actual download or just simply a, kind of a light came on. Much like when you're going through, let's take math, for instance. You're learning math, you're struggling with it, and all of a sudden something twigs and you figure it out. Many people make the mistake of thinking that's a download. All of a sudden, I got a download and I understand how to do this. No, not a download. You just finally twigged on what you've been working on for way too long.
Keith, part of my issue with these downloads or uploads, whatever you want to call them, that people say they're having, the one thing that I have noticed recently, and going into year 4 here of this show, is there are so many different trends that people have. This year alone, we've seen people now who've never had ET contact experiences say they're being taken. And apparently the numbers are showing an increase on that, but maybe it's people looking for their 15 minutes of fame. Earlier this year, everything was around the Mandela effect. In 2016 and 2015, everybody was a bloody demonologist in the paranormal, and everything was demonic, and right before that, everybody had a paranormal radio, or paranormal television pilot that was going to get on Sci-Fi or NBC or A&E or whatever network it was. There's so many trends that go on in this field. At what point do you say, how do I trust that this person is actually getting what they are getting?
Well, the best way I can put it is this. Number one, if it's an actual download, take a look at the information. Okay, now it may one big issue is it may not make sense to the person getting it. Okay, that would be one of the key factors. If they don't understand what they're writing down, but they've got something to work with, you can qualify that one pretty much as a download. I mean, you can call it a download, or you can call it all of a sudden you just twigged into past life. But we can work with it being a download. Anything that that you can find a way for it to make sense may quite literally rule out the download, but doesn't make it any less real and doesn't make it any less important. We're talking about the terminology behind it, or the label, if you will. Because downloads are almost invariably of major import that don't fit with what the person was doing. Okay, like, for instance, if you're sitting there thinking about how to approach a problem with your boss, right? And you don't know how to do it, you haven't talked to anybody, but you're sitting there and you're thinking it over and over, and then all of a sudden you come up with an idea. Many people I've heard when they've done that have said, "Oh, I got a download." And I'm like, no, you just sorted out the problem. Your brain can actually do that on occasion. And rest assured, I'm surprised some people actually have the ability to sort it out. The downloads have a tendency of being things that the person getting it doesn't necessarily know how to work with it. They may have familiarity of it, but have no idea how to put it all in place. Okay, or if it comes right out of left field, if you're constantly looking at sports and all of a sudden you end up with a brilliant recipe, for instance. You're not into recipes, but all of a sudden you get this brilliant recipe that makes no sense. Well, you tapped into something, and clearly it wasn't your interest. This is how you separate whether we're dealing with a download or, it's sort of a toss-up whether you want to call it a download or tapping into the neural net. But in either event, it's one of these things that you got to be careful you don't dismiss it, but look at the information that's coming in. Does it make functional sense that this person would be thinking that? If it does, you may not be dealing with a download. Most downloads don't add up for the person's personality or interest.
See, I look at the downloads, Keith, and I look at them as almost along the same lines, and I'm not trying to be naive here. Maybe it's a skeptical hat that I wear sometimes oh so well. But
I wear one all the time.
But I look at it like this is a trend. It's somebody trying to get attention. It's, because the minute they get that download, they're right on Facebook. Oh, I got a download last night, or I got these codes, and somebody tell me what 062.338.-87 means, and it's getting beyond ridiculous. And I'm starting to look at that much like I am fake news, because I don't know these people. I don't know whether they're getting it or not. I don't know how to tell if they are getting it, or why on earth that Joe Alien from planet whatever wants to choose this person in the middle of a small town in South Dakota. I don't get it. Like, why? Well, am I pushing the logic too far here?
No. Ultimately, you cannot push true logic too far. Okay, you're asking questions that are very viable, very rational, and in all fairness, the greater majority of people that are talking about getting downloads, okay, they are talking about it to anybody and everybody. The people that just go out, I had this incredible download and here it is. Okay, number one, that's usually attention seeking. When just to put it on a personal level, when I got the download when I was back east, I didn't go running around everybody and say, oh, I got a download. Yes, I wrote the information down with other people there because, well, that's where we were. But I only went and talk to one specific person who I figured had an answer. Bearing in mind he's a trained scientist, it's a pretty good bet. I know Preacher can vouch for that. If you want a logical answer for a technological thing, go to somebody that's got an IQ. Go to somebody that's trained. If you're just telling everybody under the sun, the odds are, and this doesn't mean it's always the case, but the odds are in favor of it, just quite frankly being, I want attention. Putting a bunch of numbers like what you just listed, and don't ask me to repeat the specific ones, right? But just putting that kind out and going, what does this code mean? Well, I'm sorry. Can we try for something a little more specific? Give us context. But you are right. There are so many people in today's world, and especially in this field, and in all fairness, it bleeds from this one into the psychic field, where people are talking about, I'm getting these downloads. And yet, and here's the kicker, downloads actually coming from the off-worlders. Now, let's be clear. A download is specifically something that an off-worlder is finding the message down to the planet. Hence why we call them downloads instead of uploads. But they're trying to get a message down to the planet. They're going to be putting down specific things that are beneficial, that are helpful. They're not going to be putting out stuff that is self-serving. They're not going to be putting, downloading information that has nothing to it. Like a list of numbers. I got this download. Here's an incredible list of numbers. They don't do that. Or if they did, you didn't get all of the download because you're missing something rather, shall we say, necessary.
Keith, I'm going to call you on your cell phone.
Okay.
Keith, I'm going to call you on your cell phone because our audio is really choppy with you here.
Okay, I got to go up front and get my cell phone.
Well, you go, quickly run, and I'll man the ship for here for a couple of seconds. How about that?
Okay.
All right. We're going to make this a little bit smoother. Because for some reason, sometimes his signal from Skype just isn't very strong. So we're going to try and clear this up a little bit. Our Keith Andrews comes on the show the first Friday of every month. I want to say thanks to all of you guys. Literally, you guys are hopping on the bandwagon. Now, let's turn that off so you don't hear that. You guys are hopping on the bandwagon trying to get, there you are, buddy. There you are.
You're coming in on 702?
Yeah. Yeah, well...
okay, well, we've got an interesting glitch going to happen, because I've got a phone call that has to come in to send a kid home, but that's going to come in on here, so we'll deal with it when it gets there.
Exactly. We can deal with that. Children are more important. Anyways, back to the downloads, Keith. I understand with what you're saying, that you got to take them with a grain of salt that people are getting, but I think I'm like a lot of people out there, okay? I'm one to believe, I'm not so far down the rabbit hole where I believe that every government official is an evil and corrupt person, okay? I'm not that far down the rabbit hole. But here I'm thinking, why would they choose somebody in a hick town like my town, where I am, okay? Maybe the local chef at the restaurant, one of the restaurants in town, all of a sudden to get a download, instead of, say, somebody of, and I hate to use this word because we're all important, but a level of importance. That's what doesn't make sense to me.
Well, there's a couple of things you look at. And, first and foremost, and, I'm going to put this out to everybody before I do that, but if this phone rings on the other one, I'm going to have to hang up and take it because I got to get a message home. That said, we'll deal with that when it happens. In the meantime, the reason they would target a hick town, as it were, is because they tried the government, and that didn't work. Okay. The government that, frankly, they didn't follow through with. And that doesn't mean we're greater.
Man, your cell phone is as bad as Skype. You know what I'm gonna? You know what, Keith? What I'm gonna do here? I'm gonna reboot Skype on this end. So give me a couple minutes, and I'm gonna try and get you back on Skype here. Okay? So that's what I'm gonna quickly try and do here. So. Our Keith Andrews will be back here in 2 seconds. I'm wondering if it's just a Skype issue here on my end here. So we're going to quickly reboot Skype and get things going on this end, because we got to make sure that we have good audio for you guys for this show. You know, who knows? Maybe this is the retribution we're getting for getting you guys to troll Zoomer Radio and say, hey, how about picking up Spaced Out Radio in the nights? What do you think? Karma? Coincidence? Where could it be? I don't know. I really don't know. By the way, I still got the bag of ketchup potato chips here that I'm working on. If you haven't tried ketchup potato chips yet, they're very, very good. Aliens like them. That's why we always keep a bag around here. Alright, let's try this again and see if we can get this thing working with Keith. Maybe we can get him on Skype this time. I don't know. Son of a gun. I don't get it. Let's try this. Oh, that might be why. Hold on. So, keep on pressing, keep on pushing. No, we're not having technical difficulties tonight, Derek, on Twitter. I'm feeling shame now because you caught that, but that's okay. That's okay. We're going to try and get Keith back here in 2 seconds here. There we go. Let's try this. See if we can get him this time. Hopefully Skype wants to play ball. I don't know. What do you guys think? Is Skype going to want to play ball? Doesn't look like it. It's end call there. See if we can get Keith on board now. Go from here. So what do you guys think? While we're waiting to try and hook back up with Keith here, I do want to say...
Did it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, shame on you. Shame on you for putting your camera on and letting me see that wonderful mane of hair that you have.
Yeah, well, you know. Gonna shock everybody in my hand, and one night I'm going to end up getting it cut without me being aware of it. That ought to be good.
Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. Anyways, now you're sounding much better. You know what's really weird is I can hook up to Revolution Radio, but I can't hook up to you. So I have to disconnect from Revolution Radio, say the hell with them, and then hook into you. Weird.
Well, this isn't going to make you feel much better, but I've been having a massive problem with my biomagnetoelectrics lately, where it is just frying everything. You know, which it like I just posted in Spreaker there, you know, because it was suggested I change rooms. And I'm like, no, that doesn't work well because I'm going there. You know, in New York, I was asked to step away from the kiosk so that we could get my ticket to go home because I jammed the system. You know.
Are you sure some of your hair just didn't get in there to jam the system?
Yeah, because I've been doing it ever since I was a kid.
John says, about time you mentioned Keith's mane, David.
Anyways, funny, my parents, my mom still mentions it. My dad, not so much since he's passed away. But, you know, my mom is still, when are you getting a haircut? I says, I can't figure out which one to cut.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not. You know. But anyway, we should, you know. We could go in all sorts of directions with that.
No, absolutely. Absolutely, you are 100% correct in regards to that. So, when it comes to these downloads, then, you were mentioning, I had asked you about whether or not the people who are receiving them, why don't we see, for instance, my local politician getting them? Or, because she is one hell of a lady named Donna. She is a hell of a lady. She cares about the area, cares about the community, cares about this province, but she's not getting downloads. But in the meantime, Joe or Jane Smith, who works at, the local coffee shop and is more esoteric in belief, keeps telling us that they get the downloads. Now, my story is hypothetical and hyperbole, but you get the gist of it. Why is this happening?
Well, there's two reasons. Okay, one is you got to realize that we're talking about punching something through the neural net. Now, when you go to give a download to a politician, the first thing that society in general is going to do is they're going to look at the politician and go, they're full of it. Primarily because 90% of people think that politicians across the board are. The other problem, of course, is that when you're dealing with this kind of information, most politicians are so caught up, and I realize I'm talking gross generalities, but most of them are so focused on the idea of their political career. When you get into a sketchy subject like downloads and ufology and that side of it, they don't want to say anything about it for fear it will ruin their credibility. Little do they realize it would actually make them more credible. Okay, that's the first problem. The other one is the one that you were very specific. There's no allusion to it. You were very specific. Politicians don't need to step into the public eye. They're already there. And so they don't need that 15 minutes of fame. And that is, quite sadly, where a lot of people come up with the idea of, I had a download. And call it cynical if you will, I call it factual. Okay, the majority of people that get them, or more to the point, that claim to get them, well, in my opinion, simply don't. And, I'm not the final answer to anything. I have enough trouble being me, never mind trying to figure everybody else out. But that's where you get a lot of the conflict. Because, politicians on the whole, or, never mind politicians, let's broaden that scope a bit. Your politicians, your CEOs, and your upper echelon as far as management goes, are not the people in the big companies that are being targeted. Okay, they're not the ones that get them for exactly that reason. Most of the contracts that were made by the upper end were broken or totally disregarded, one of the two. Okay, now when you go to these odd people, if you will, or just the so-called Mr. Nobody, what you've got is somebody that may say something that twigs or that triggers with other people, and you've got a better shot at getting it out to the general public if you put it through somebody that's going to babble. Okay, this is where it gets to be real confusing. I even find it fascinating that every now and again you'll end up with somebody that is clinically mentally off kilter, but comes up with some of the best insights available. And it has to do with the fact that when you get into too much of the, of the real professional political side or the real professional career side, you've got people that are so caught up in what should be or what the norm is that the brain doesn't wrap around the message very well. I trust that makes sense.
Yes, but it still doesn't resonate with me, Keith, as to why we don't see firefighters, police officers, teachers getting these downloads and being just as public with it.
Oh, think about that for just half a second. Take somebody in a real well-positioned place. They've got their career going really well, and their life is running on that, if you will, the standard treadwheel. Society's treadwheel. They're going through their business. They're doing well financially. They've got all the respect. And then all of a sudden they go, oh, by the way, I had an alien download, and here's what it is. All of a sudden, and I've seen it happen, they open their mouth, and all of a sudden their career collapses around them. People that are, on the whole, in the higher ends, like, you see, you're sort of in one of those weird setups. Yes, you're a professional radio station, but your business, the circle you work with is the paranormal. So for you to go, oh, I got a download, that's just plain normal. That's going to be accepted. For somebody, I mean, picture what would happen if you went to a Christian radio, and all of a sudden the head preacher goes, oh, by the way, I had an alien download. Can you picture what would happen to their credibility? That's where it becomes a more complicated setup. Does that make a little more sense?
Yes, and it does. It still doesn't resonate with me, though, that we see people who have little to no power in life, and I hate to use that term because it sounds so derogatory, who are getting these.
But all too accurate.
but it is accurate, Keith, and I don't mean to put anybody down who has had these downloads or hasn't. I don't know if I have or not. I wouldn't know if I did. Right? Well, or you get these people who are so connected, Keith, that they say, oh, I get the downloads once a week or something along those lines. This is where I have troubles believing him.
Oh, and I agree with you. There are I've met a lot of people over the years. Now, like I said, I've been doing this for decades. Okay. And what I consider true download, as in a chunk of verifiable, quantifiable information that got dumped in at one point. Okay. I'm not talking about that little bit of a aha moment or, gee, I never thought of that before. I'm talking about quantifiable evidence, quantifiable chunk of information that I can take and do something with. Okay. I've had two, I think. I've had two. I might have had a third, but that I can comfortably say this issue with the neural enhancer, that was done to the point that I went and talked to a scientist to find out just exactly what I'd just written down. Okay. To me, that's pretty black and white. I'm not a scientist. I'm not trained in that field. Lord knows I couldn't have been trained in the electronics field when I was a kid because I was colorblind. So for anything to be dumped into my lap of any of that caliber, it's not going to make any sense. And in a nutshell, it was schematics on a magnetic neural enhancer. Okay, I didn't know what I was looking at. The other one that I had was a marketing system that I actually went to a mathematician and a computer specialist to check out the algorithm, because I've never done that kind of stuff before. And I certainly wasn't thinking of it while I was asleep. The one I had while I was awake, the marketing system I had when I was asleep, but there is a point to it. So, what is this? I'm just getting this. Oh, okay.
We only got about 2 minutes here, Keith, about it.
Okay. Yeah, so ultimately, I understand your concern. Your question, where it comes from. people, and most of the time, a download is a clump of actual quantifiable evidence. Something you can do something with is the big marker for it. And we can carry this on when we get back. I don't have a problem with that. I know we're about to get cut off here. Well, sort of. You're going to hang up on us.
Literally in about a minute, but that's okay. That's okay. You know, I don't think I'm actually going to hang up on you, but
well, I hope not. But you know, but no, the funny part about it from that whole thing is when you're talking downloads, a download by definition is a chunk of quantifiable, malleable information, something you can do something practical with. Okay, and most of what people are calling downloads. You'll notice most people say I had a download, but they don't give you anything specific.
Yes.
That is a dead giveaway it wasn't a download. Because a download is a chunk of quantifiable evidence that somebody can do something with. The person that gets it may, for whatever reason, not be able to do anything, but the information they've got, when I talk about it being quantifiable, I mean they can actually physically write it down so that somebody in the necessary field will be able to do something with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a download is.
Wow. On that note, we're going to go to break here on Spaced Out Radio. Keith, you hold on. Our Keith Andrews is here the first Friday of every month. And happens to be 24 more shopping days until Christmas. What are you getting old Davy this year? That's the big question you need to answer during the break. How about joining our Patreon account for as low as $1 a month? That would be kind of cool. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back with more after this.
Hey, space travelers. It's Joe Roop, your host of Spaced Out Saturdays. Come join me as we explore the realms of the paranormal, the esoteric, and everything in between every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. You know the truth is out there. Don't get caught sleepwalking. Come join Spaced Out Saturdays. That's every Saturday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, right here on spacedoutradio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at spacedoutradio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience, Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio Night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your 4-Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
There's a lot of strange going on in this world, and we can help you find out what's going on with you. Paranormal, cryptids, UFOs in the sky, aliens in your bedroom tickling your toes. We have the investigators you need to find out the answers you deserve. All you have to do is head to spacedoutradio.com. Your information is 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report. It's free, and we're here to help.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our Advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, it is the debut of Joseph Roop on Spaced Out Saturdays. As Joe hops into the captain's chair while I head off into the wilderness to find my Zen and my Chi. Sunday night, Elizabeth Anglin is in here for Spaced Out Sundays. Cosmic Passport. Each show gets going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us as well. We are also live on KTLK, The Fringe.fm, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listeners. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Herquitaliancy. Herquitaliancy is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets the password each and every night, right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter, at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect live with me during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also join us for live chat in the SOR Space Travelers group. We're also on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. You could subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio. We're on iHeartRadio in the United States, TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. Rock out to some Bumblefoot. Shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Watch great videos from UFO seekers and Contact TV, and read up on your latest news in the Encounter online. Everything at spacedoutradio.com. It's the first Friday of the month, which means our Keith Andrews is here, joining us for the ET Connection. Keith, welcome back.
And thank you for having me, and welcome to all the listeners, both the ones that are still here or the ones that are just joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's start off with a question from Alan. He is saying, Keith, as of the last 2 months, boy, got tongue-tied there. As of the last 2 months, I've been seeing a buttload of shadow people. What would cause that?
Well, a couple of things. And by the way, I'm not trying that word that you just did because I have trouble with it all the time. Never mind now and then. Okay. But no, there's two things that can cause it. One is that there's you've caught their attention. Now, shadow people, for lack of a better word, tend to be scouts. In other words, they go in, check somebody out before things start to happen. So you may be dealing with them checking out to see what kind of a person you are, whether they can work with you, that sort of thing. Or it may be the other possibility is that the callers, the listeners' senses are getting stronger, and it's not so much that there are more, so much as he's seeing more of them. So, given the latter part, I'd be inclined to say that there's a hot spot somewhere around there where they're set up. But those are the two possibilities that could be causing it.
I thought shadow people were more paranormal.
Well, this is where it gets to be, they fall under the category of being paranormal. But because of the fact that I don't have a lot to work with, shadow people are, when you look at the actual construction of them, they aren't exactly off-worlders. The reason they're called shadow people is because of the way they're built. The problem is that what you end up with is, especially if you're seeing a lot, there aren't an incredible amount that you'll see clustered around each other. So in order for a lot to show up, it's a suspicion on my part, but it's a good bet that what you've got is corner view of people that your eyes aren't quite focusing on. Now, this doesn't mean that the shadow people aren't there, and I have no doubt he's seeing more of them, which means something in the area is going on, and he seems to be tied, he or she, I'm not sure who the caller is, who the listener is.
It's Alan.
But that's Alan. Well, we can safely say that's a he, or his parents were cruel. But no, the reality, from that end, is there is undoubtedly something going on in the area that Alan is very close to. And, of course, his senses have to be attuned to be able to spot him in the first place. But are you in any danger, Alan? The answer is no. Not by the feel of it, not at all.
Excellent. Excellent. As we wait for more questions to come out. Oh, he follows up and says, he feels like he's between densities and that the densities are thinning.
Okay, he's talking vibratory interactions, which means they're trying to make contact and they're trying to, and again, let's be clear, this is not something that is going to cause any damage. It's not something that's going to hurt him in any way, that's going to hurt you in any way. It's simply a modification of the vibratory rate so that they can actually communicate, which means sometime, probably average times, usually 2 to 2.5 weeks, sometimes a little longer, sometimes a little shorter. But by the feel of it, they're trying to align your wavelengths with theirs to be able to communicate not their wavelength, because that refers to light, but the sound wave, the vibratory rate, so they can actually communicate with you more readily. This is just the first step. And again, I'm not sensing any danger. The shadow people don't tend to cause problems.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. But I guess with the densities thinning, could that create some sort of loophole or wormhole in between the paranormal and the extraterrestrial realm?
No. We're not talking about basically it boils down to this, and any one of the listeners can do it. If you take your hand and you look at it, it looks solid. If you move it back and forth really fast, it's harder to spot. It becomes semi-transparent, or so it seems. What we're talking about is Alan's molecules being accelerated so that he starts feeling lighter, starts feeling a little bit disconnected, but they're trying to find a match between it. They're trying to bring it in so they can actually communicate. Is the way that usually works. And like I said, it does not cause any damage. It doesn't do anything to, Alan's not in any danger, and neither is anybody around him. It's kind of along the lines of giving somebody a hearing aid. I think that's the best way to put it.
Dennis is asking, Keith, have you ever heard any of our audience's names along your journeys?
Now, there's an excellent question. I love it. I don't usually pay attention to people's names. I'm presuming we're referring to when I've been off world or dealing with those people. I undoubtedly have, but the unfortunate part there is even when I'm meeting people face to face, I tend to talk to them without finding what their names are. So it becomes a bit of a complication on that one. In all fairness, I was just trying to think. I was talking to somebody, and I'm going to have to put it this way. I don't even know if it's one of our listeners, but I was talking to somebody the other day that asked me if I remembered seeing them because they had seen me on a ship. I didn't know who they were, but I was able to tell them what the description was, and it wasn't what they normally wear. And the guy in question turned around and said, "Yeah, that's exactly what I remember wearing." And so I just looked at him and I said, "Well, then the answer would be yes." But unfortunately, me and names don't get along very well. I'm working on that one.
Right. Catalina is asking, Keith, have you ever heard of shadow people using cloaking devices?
Shadow people don't require cloaking devices, so no. See, shadow people can fade out of the light spectrum on their own. Well, more to the point, they vibrate out of it, but same idea. But they don't use cloaking devices. So if you're looking at somebody dressed like a shadow person and cloaking, that's a whole different ballgame. Okay. But no, I've never heard of a shadow person even requiring a cloaking device, which is why they don't use them.
All right, BTO is saying, Keith, who are downloading to you, and what are they currently sharing with you in those downloads?
Well, there's a few things. The majority of it. I mean, there's a lot of different areas it comes from. Some of the projects that I'm working on, that they have given me the information. Like I said, I've only had a couple of downloads that I call downloads, where I woke up with a massive chunk of information or was awake, one of each. One was a way to run a business, literally because of the fact, and understand, because my finances are a mess, or more to the point, extremely limited, and I have never approved of the way that modern business is done because of the fact that the people doing the work don't get paid. I was trying to figure a way around it, and I went to bed one night, woke up the following morning with an incredible algorithm that was like a mile and a half long, and I had to take it to a computer programmer to get it tested, right, and a mathematician. The other one is a neural enhancer, and the thing with this particular piece of equipment, and I refuse, before anybody jumps on it, I'm going to build one. It's not going to cost me much to do it, but I will test it on me before I release it to anybody, because what it does is it literally enhances the link to the neural net. Thereby, the theory, I call it theory, they tell me it works, is that it will solve such neat little things as the leading edge of anything that has to do with cognitive retention. Okay, where memory starts to collapse, it has the capacity to enhance the higher senses, doesn't alter them, it simply brings them into balance, kind of like fine-tuning. And when we talk about that, we are talking about being able to modify the nerve relays so that things like people that are stuck in wheelchairs, people that are paraplegic, people that are that their eyesight is starting to collapse, these sorts of things are curable. And before anybody jumps on any brilliant idea, yeah, I actually did work on somebody myself that I pulled out of a wheelchair. They were in it. And when I got finished with them, they didn't require it. They still don't. So, I'm being handed information and guidelines to help make things run more smoothly, more equitably, but that are designed to help. And one of the biggest things that you got to realize, and the reason I get handed them, is because I refuse to turn them into a weapon. Okay, and virtually everything can be turned into a weapon, but there are ways to get around it. But that would be, now, as far as, the other part, of course, the Galactic Consortium itself, more often than not, are the ones dealing with it. The Pleiadians, being as they're the healers, are the ones that sent me the neural net. Or not the neural net, rather, the mnemonic enhancer. They're the ones that actually really understand the human, the bipedal Terran genome, as it were. Okay. And, when we start looking at society, that's coming straight out of the Galactic Consortium Council. And in all fairness, that stuff doesn't come in on download. That stuff, they take me there, which is not always enjoyable. You don't get a lot of sleep when that happens.
Let's get to another question. This one comes from Kevin, who says, his daughter's friend stayed the night and had a dream, asked her to draw a picture of what it was in her dream, and it was a shadow person standing behind the dresser where he has seen it. Can they communicate through dreams?
Absolutely. A dream state is simply another vibratory state of the neural net. of the biomagnetic flux contained within the human genome. Matter of fact, in all fairness, it's contained within all of life. But yeah, they absolutely can communicate through dream state. And, in all fairness, it's not surprising that particular munchkin would pick it up in that room because she's hypersensitive to start with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they absolutely communicate through the dream state. Go ahead.
Shar is asking, Keith, what is it that people are using? Is it cloaking or hypnosis?
Well, I'm going to be rather obtuse. Which ones? Because both are being put to use.
Well, let's break them both down.
Well, cloaking, quite often, sometimes that does get used, depending on the race. Cloaking literally means using a piece of equipment to modify the visual, modify what comes across on the visual spectrum. Japan actually has a piece of technology that they use what would amount to a cloaking device. So mankind has it. And what it is in Japan is they've got a camera set up on the big rigs because their streets are so narrow. They put a camera on the front that broadcasts onto the back of the semi, so you can see what's in front of the semi, so you know when it's safe to try to move. That is a form of cloaking device. Take the vision from what's in front, put it behind, and you don't see what's in the middle. Okay, now when we're talking about modifying the hypnosis thing, or in all fairness, the actual term in this case would be mesmerism. Meaning taking over, getting the person to believe they see something that's not there, or don't see something that is. Essentially, that also can be used, but that's more of when you're dealing with one-on-one instead of trying to hide a ship, which is where the two different aspects would be. Cloaking device, on the whole, is used for your bigger vehicles, or for that matter, one-man pods, but they're generally used for a piece of equipment. Whereas the if you will, the mesmerism, the ability to cloud the mind, is done more on a one-to-one base. Okay, it depends on the situation you're facing as to which way it goes. I'm hoping that was clear.
Yeah, and when it comes to hypnosis, though, especially people who are ET contactees, and they want to learn through hypnosis what's happening, how do they know that they're not being walked through a shyster's imagination, shall we say?
Oh, I really wish I could give you an answer to that, because by the time they figure it out, it's already too late. You see, one of the dead giveaways, is if somebody is asking you what you went through, to explain what you're going through, and let's say you go, well, I don't know if I've been abducted. Okay, and that's what you're going to the hypnotherapist for. If the hypnotherapist goes, okay, tell me what you can see, and the guy goes, well, I see a shadowy figure. Okay, that's all I've got. Well, okay, I need you to focus in, and let's just focus in. Can you, when you say a shadowy figure, are you getting any description of the body? And let's just go with the person says, well, I can tell it's got a head, but I can't see much else. Okay. A good hypnotherapist will go, can you describe the head to me? Okay. And the person may say something like, well, I can see eyes. Okay. Well, can you be more specific? What do the eyes look like? Be as descriptive as you can. This is good hypnotherapy work. If you get the person and you go, I'm worried I might be having an abduction here or something, an encounter, and the hypnotherapist says, okay, Now, you say you think you've been abducted. Is it a male? Okay. Are the eyes round or do they glow? These are leading questions that are formulated by the hypnotherapist, or in this case, I like the word you use, by the shyster, that will predispose the person to put that picture in place without knowing, without actually seeing anything. And that becomes excessively dangerous, because a good hypnotherapist will ask for clarification. They will go, I don't quite understand what you're talking about. Can you be more specific? And work it out that way. But work on what the person is, work with what the person's saying. Like, if you see the eyes, or let's say you see the face, can you describe the face? And the person says, well, I think it's, I think that it might be kind of roundish. A good hypnotherapist will do something like, can you focus a little clear, focus more on it, bring the picture into view for yourself, concentrate on the picture. Now, can you be more specific? Is it a little more clear for you? A bad one will go, okay, so you see a round face. Okay, is this correct? Well, of course, the problem is, with a statement like that, the person is automatically predisposed to go, yes, it's round, because now the image is being placed by the hypnotherapist. Okay, that's, and like I said, the real hard part here, unless you talk to somebody ahead of time that has dealt with that specific hypnotherapist, by the time you figure out that what they're doing is backwards, it's usually too late. Does that make sense?
Total sense. Back to shadow people for a minute. Deb at #SpaceOutRadio is asking, she says, a lot of paranormal experts don't seem to be taking shadow people very seriously. The shadow people, don't interact well with other entities, and they are more powerful than the experts are saying. Do you agree with this?
Well, quite frankly, yes. And in all fairness, let's break that down one at a time. Absolutely, a lot of people ignore the shadow people side of it. This is a bad idea. Okay, ignoring the shadow people would have been kind of along the lines of, ignoring the other cars on the road. Not a good idea if you're going to drive. Secondly, are they more powerful than the other races? In all fairness, no, they're just different. Part of the reason that they don't actually interact with most of the other races is because their method of communication is a little bit more complicated, and therefore they tend to keep to themselves. It's not a question of they're not welcome, it's a question of communication is a bit of a problem because they work on, quite literally, optical inference. Okay, they literally communicate without vocal cords or what you would traditionally call like telepathy doesn't work for them because they don't have what you would call a brain to work with, a biochemical brain to work with. They literally are created of, they're born of shadow, which is a wavelength.
Let's get to Andrew's question here. He read a report out of Seattle from one of the news outlets there that a man from that state was claiming he was going to battle lizard people. So his question to you is, Keith, how do we know that this gentleman from Washington State wasn't actually seeing or being downloaded information about lizard people coming?
Well, how do you know for certain? You don't. Okay. Are there lizard people, as it were, that are volatile, that are problematic? Absolutely. Okay. So it is quite possible that he was picking up information or being handed this information. The question that begs answering is if he knew what, if he could describe what these lizard people were like, or what, even a personality profile, if you will. Okay, that would tell you more about whether or not he's on the right track, or whether he's walking into a, well, that just about came out rude, walking into a problem of a galactic nature. If you're being hired by the wrong side, you could be in serious trouble. But I've got no reason to say he wasn't getting it, because there are very negative reptilian people. And like I mentioned to somebody the other day, when I talk about them being reptilian, that does not mean they were dinosaurs. That just means they look like reptiles. It's the best way to describe them. But I've got no reason to say he wasn't, because there are reptilian races that are a whole lot more negative, a whole lot more conquest-oriented. So him going to battle him would not be a surprise. But it depends, from my standpoint, it depends on what kind of information he's got on the race itself that he's going to battle. Because if he's being called up, they're giving him some information on what he's going to fight. They're not just going to say, we need you to fight reptilians. They're going to give him something solid to work with.
See, the thing, I haven't seen the report yet, but from what I've seen in the past of reports like this, where people go to the media, unfortunately, it's usually someone who looks like they should be in a Best of Walmart Shoppers photo line who isn't really talking a lot of sense. But, the media needs that Friday afternoon or Friday night evening, story to, end the telecast with. That's something a little bit light and endearing, good for a laugh, shall we say, if you want to put it that way. Why don't we ever have, the police chief have that download or that experience? Do you see what I'm saying? And that's
I understand entirely what you're saying.
And that's where I don't think this is the exact scenario in which we've been talking about quite a bit here recently on this show when it comes to fake news. As to why people in the mainstream don't take these topics as seriously as they probably should.
Well, part of it, like when we talk about as it were, well-placed people, I forget exactly which one it was, like the names of them, but I do remember the event. Bud Hopkins, who anybody in the UFO field knows the name, anybody that's been there for any length of time, but he ended up doing a couple of sessions with people where he found one normal, everyday, run-of-the-mill person and a very well-placed, and I think it was a politician that was very well-placed, that was also taken, and those two could identify each other on the ship. And they both came back with the same answer, that they were told that the environment in that area, because they were both from the same area, I think it was New York, but these two had never met on the physical world. Like, they'd never met here. They met on board ship, and Bud Hopkins was actually able to track both of them down and get the information sorted. But it's very rare that happens, and like I said, I suspect it's because of the interactions that the off-worlders have had repeatedly with politicians and with corporations, where the politicians have been more interested in their own name and not telling anybody things, and the industrial moguls have been too caught up in the profit.
I understand that, okay, but I guess here's my thing. When are we actually going to have one of these reports that doesn't look like somebody who is, living at the bottom end of the trailer park? And that's no disrespect to people who, live in a trailer park. I know many people who do. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it always...
I absolutely agree with you.
Let me put it this. I'm trying to figure out the proper words on how to say this without sounding insulting to anybody out there.
Good luck.
Well, no, exactly. Exactly, good luck. I don't want to say the lower tier of society, but you know where I'm going with this. I'm getting frustrated
I understand exactly. And here's, I'll save you the trouble. See, I don't mind actually upsetting people by being politically incorrect. I make a living at it. But the whole challenge is this. And you're actually working on the leading edge of this. I know of a couple of other people that are working on it. But the problem is this. Until society, in all fairness, until the UFO community starts taking it seriously when somebody comes to them, when anybody comes to them and says, I think I may have been abducted, when the UFO community starts on the whole going, okay, let's look into understanding what just happened, instead of going, yeah, you're completely out of touch and you're trying to make a name for yourself. When the UFO community starts doing that, then the big people will start coming out of the woodwork. But right now, even the UFO community, and this is something I know you've got your hands all the way up to your elbows, if not your armpits, in trying to sort, as in trying to get the UFO community to start treating itself properly. Once that happens, that's when the higher-ups will start stepping out of the woodwork.
I get that. Is it a matter of, people not wanting to put their careers on the lines, you think?
Most of the time, yes. There have been staggering accounts of professional CEOs or professional politicians that the moment they open their mouth, their toilet, their ability or their career goes in the toilet. Hollywood has the same problem. Hollywood, the moment you say something out of line, they will blackball you in a heartbeat. So it's quite literally, when we're talking about, and this boils down to full disclosure, when we're talking about disclosure, about these well-placed individuals that have the finances and what have you to do it, getting them to step out is going to take the UFO community on the whole, and I'm talking on a global level, they're going to have to get their acting gear in order to get the people that are in the financial position to actually make an impact. Because I absolutely agree with you with the frustration level and the whole 9 yards. It's like I told somebody today. The people that care can't do anything about it, and the people that can do something about it don't seem to care.
I can understand that. But when it comes down to the idea of having to try and relay that message from somebody who is, say, not clean shaven, missing teeth, a couple of cigarettes hanging out of their mouth, you know what I'm saying? Compared to, say, someone in a suit or a uniform, it's much different.
Absolutely. And that is one of the challenges that everybody is facing. Okay. The unfortunate part is that when you're dealing with these people, when you're dealing with this whole situation, right, the people that are in those suits, because of the way that society puts that, that noose around your neck as such a critical issue of success, that's where society's got it a little bass-ackwards. But the hard part is getting the other people heard. But, of course, before the people will be heard about the UFO, the people that are in power have to start listening to the common person in order to be able to hear what they say anyway. This is not just the problem is this isn't just relegated to the UFO community. Okay, although that is where it is pertinent on today's show. But I fully understand where you're coming from as far as, how do you get past that? And the real trick for What the heck was that? Okay.
I have no idea.
Okay. Welcome to my world. The reality is that in each individual community, the more unified the people in the UFO community are, the easier it's going to be for somebody that is not in that field to approach them. Because let's not forget, it doesn't matter what walk of life you come from. If your life is going smoothly and then all of a sudden you've got a UFO problem on your hands, it's going to scramble your perspective on life. Okay, that's where it gets to be complicated. And I wish I had an easy answer for you. Because sad to say, if a UFO at this stage in society and in this stage of technological development, if a UFO were to show up on the street in broad daylight and just sit there and even unload, even let an off-worlder or two come off, most people are going to look at that and go, man, is that one heck of a Hollywood setup? Because it's easier to believe it's not there than it is to believe it's real. You notice you've got a problem going on in the chat room in Spreaker?
I'm scrolled down a little bit here.
You might want to go up to the top.
Okay, let's not... What's going on here? What's going on here?
I don't know, but it's jumping back and forth between Nazis and Germans and all sorts of annoying little problems.
All right. Well, we'll deal with that. Not a problem. All right. Let's continue into the questions here. And Keith is BTO is asking, Keith, do you consider yourself as a galactic and or universal ambassador? If so, who exactly are you connecting with from all dimensions within the universe?
Well, let's start with the first issue. I'm certainly not going to try and list off everybody's name. That's just not going to work. However, the only dimension I deal with, quite frankly, the only one that is pertinent to this world is the third dimension. There are multiple vibratory rates that I work with. Okay, and bear in mind that just simply means their molecules are moving faster than what the standard human is. So from mankind's standpoint, I usually deal with the Galactic Consortium, but they're not the only people I deal with. I do deal with other races, from different setups. For instance, the Elementals are not part of the Galactic Consortium. They're not even from the same, if you will, group. Simply because you cannot put a fire elemental inside a galactic ship. Inside a physical ship and hope the ship survives. It's just not going to work out that well. You wouldn't be so bad with a water elemental. So the answer to the question, really, the Galactic Consortium, where it comes to the physical proximity of Earth, is the primary setup that I deal with. Now, that being said, most of my work is done through the council itself, and it really does depend on the day of the week who's sitting in which seat. Okay, right now, they certainly have and bear in mind on the consortium, on the council ship, they only have one of any given race, and not every race is represented on the council. Okay, because they've only got 12 people and they got a lot more than 12 races. Okay, but the purpose of what I'm doing, for instance, Pleiadians are right smack in the middle of it, because quite frankly, they happen to be they happen to be the healers. They're the ones that understand the multispatial healing problems. Okay, they do actually, and I find it kind of fascinating, they do have an amoeboid on it. Amoeboids are interesting people, but we'll get to them at a different point. But the overall purpose of my dealing with them is to help them understand that regardless of societal structure or physical appearance, they're all of them are looking for the same thing that mankind is looking for. And that is quite literally to be accepted, to be able to function. And before anybody jumps on it, I also end up dealing a lot with the off-worlders on why mankind, and bear in mind, the council itself has dictated that mankind, being the dominant technologically advanced sentient race on Earth, they are the ones that are on the surface of the Earth. They are the ones that are to be guiding how Earth society evolves, not how the consortium wants it to evolve, not how some race wants it to evolve, but how mankind as a whole evolves. Okay, so, do I get called in to try and help between other races as well? Absolutely. One of the biggest problems that we run into is some of the, and I hate to put it on the reptilians, but it really is them, because they are such an aggressive race. When I talk about race in this case, all of them are pretty much aggressive except for two. Their arguments can get rather on the physical side. Humans screaming at each other, like if you're dealing with in a political forum, not quite the same in a reptilian forum.
All right, Elizabeth is asking, there was a sighting here in 1979, a triangle craft, 2 reptilians with T-Rex heads, tails, and wearing clothing. Do they sound familiar to you, Mr. R. Keith?
Absolutely, except for one small little detail. They're not off-worlders. Don't get me wrong, that was a consortium ship. And the fact it had the Rex on board absolutely makes total sense. The T-Rex, and we'll just leave it called that for the time being, but they actually evolved on Earth. At the same time that dinosaurs were evolving into birds, some of the dinosaur races, dinosaur species, evolved into their own sentient versions. It's not just a split blanket, everybody becomes a bird. Didn't quite work out that way. So the fact that there were T-Rexes, as it were, on board a triangular ship makes absolute sense. It's the one ship it makes total sense they would be on. Because, quite frankly, they don't have their own.
Let's get over to Twitter here for a second, and Andrew has a question. He is saying, Keith, what do you think about this Turkish university, which is starting to add courses about UFO contact to its curriculum?
Shall we say a little later than I would have liked to have seen it happen? Hopefully, they're doing it right. But the fact that they're doing it at all is actually fantastic in my eyes. It means somebody over there finally figured out that, look, we're not alone. People talk about full disclosure. Here we have a university going, well, I don't know about full disclosure, but we better get you trained. So, I mean, to my way of thinking, it's a great idea. And, frankly, if I was in the Ukraine, I'd go to the school just on principle to see what they were up to.
I'd actually like to see that course, and I wonder what it would take, for that to happen here. I'm surprised, some of these universities haven't done it, because there are professors in Canadian universities and American universities. I know Dr. Jeff Meldrum has courses about Sasquatch down in Utah.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see how long it's going to be before this starts integrating into a North American educational type system.
Eventually it will. Okay, eventually it'll turn into a global educational system. But the fact that they've got one over there is just the tip of the iceberg. And I think, quite frankly, myself, it's a great idea. Okay, I mean, I'm absolutely all for it. Now, do I know much about it? No, but then I don't watch the news, and I certainly don't go jumping around on Google.
It would be very interesting on how you would find a proper instructor for that.
Yeah, no doubt. But I'll tell you what, I'm just going to put it out there. If you ever figure it out and you get to go, I get dibs on going with you. Just saying.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. No kidding, my friend. Christoph has a question. He's saying, Keith, I've always been curious. Do each world have their own councils as well?
Yeah. Quite frankly, they do. Some of them actually have more than one council. It depends on the race. It depends on the world. But every race that I know of, every one of them that has successfully gone into interstellar travel has a global government. And this is why when people talk about, we can't have a one world government, it doesn't work. It has worked on every other planet. I don't know why it can't work here. Other than humans aren't quite evolved to the point that they, socially evolved to that point. But every one of them has their own council, set up in various different ways, depending on the council, depending on the race. But they all have their own, if you will, political system that is working for them. I've been on some, I've talked to some people where you really have to wonder how their political system works. I know of one race where you literally, you get promoted by attrition. Needless to say, not necessarily a healthy place to hang around. And for those people that don't know what that means, it means if you want a promotion, kill your boss. This is not recommended. And on Earth, it really goes over poorly.
We only got about 4 minutes here before we got to go to break. Let's get in another question or two. Craig is asking, are the Pleiadians not zealots in their own right?
Well, I guess anybody can classify it as a zealot in their own right, but Pleiadians are healers. Now, quite frankly, you just won't find a Pleiadian, a true Pleiadian on Earth without a protective suit ever. Because if they ever get out of a protective suit, the atmosphere of Earth will kill them. Okay. So it depends on your definition of a zealot. They are dedicated to healing. Do they abduct people and I mean from all walks? Absolutely. And they are very much looking at it from not from a research, it's from research, yes. But it's always on a medical level. They do not have any sort of social interaction. Like if a Pleiadian takes you, if you're actually grabbed by a Pleiadian collection team, number one, you're not going to be awake. Number two, they are only going after medical records, after medical, cell structure, that sort of thing. You'll never be put into a social experiment. Just not going to happen. That's not the way they work. Because they're interested in the healing side of it, not in the social side. Okay, but, could you call them zealots? Hyper-focus, certainly. Zealot, they don't try and convert other races. And to my way of looking at being a zealot, that's what a zealot does, is they try and tell everybody this is the right way, and they don't. What they do is they say this is our way. This is how we work. And then you get to figure out what you want to do with it. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's try and sneak in one more question here, Keith, if you don't mind. This one comes from John, who is asking, is there a difference between the Galactic Consortium and the Galactic Federation?
Yes, but only a minor one. The Galactic Consortium actually encompasses all of the ins and outs. The Galactic Federation is the military corps. So the Galactic Federation actually answers to the Galactic Consortium, not vice versa. Okay, the Galactic Federation is the one that moves in. If there's a massive problem, they're the guys that come in with the battleships. And rest assured, if they come in with the battleships, you do not want to be on the receiving end. But that's what the difference is. The Federation itself is the military side of it. That's pretty much the biggest difference between the two, but they're part of the same concept, if you will. You know, the whole thing with the consortium is that they are interested in social flexibility, social adaptation. I think that's the wrong word, in fairness. But essentially, they're trying to get everybody to get along. You know, to actually let the Galactic Society evolve. Okay.
Not a
I
problem.
trust that makes sense.
It totally does. And my friend, I'll get you to hold on right now because we're going to hop out for our final break of the night. Our Keith Andrews is here the first Friday of every month with the ET Connection. Keith comes in, talks all things extraterrestrial, answers your questions as well, and he'll be back, his next appearance, in 2018, January 5th, the first Friday of the new year, and otherwise, this will be his final show of 2017. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back right after this.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
There's stories, then there's the truth. Do any of us really trust the news anymore? This is Jamie Sexton, owner of Rebel Planet News. The third Thursday of every month, I appear on SpacedOutRadio.com to bring you the truth you deserve, without mainstream media lies or alternative media fear-mongering. We'll get to the heart of the story and deliver the truth you're seeking. So come join us here for the Rebel Planet at SpacedOutRadio.com.
We are lighting the void on Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, this is Joe Roop, and I'm hanging out in SOR headquarters every Saturday night, bringing you the latest news when it comes to the weird and strange. Bigfoot, occult, UFOs, ghosts, and everything in between, I got you covered. You can tune in to SpacedOutRadio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Come travel into the void with us on Spaced Out Saturdays.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Hi there. I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop, On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Wachowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories. From alien encounters to the latest conspiracies, you won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
There's a lot of strange going on in this world, and we can help you find out what's going on with you. Paranormal, cryptids, UFOs in the sky, aliens in your bedroom tickling your toes. We have the investigators you need to find out the answers you deserve. All you have to do is head to spacedoutradio.com. Your information is 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report. It's free, and we're here to help.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio. And on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
A child grew up too fast, went running wild. Now we don't know who to pray to.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, it's the debut of Joseph Roop on Spaced Out Saturdays as he takes over the captain's chair while I leave and venture off into the wilderness to find my Zen and my Chi. Then he gives way on Sunday to Elizabeth Anglin with Spaced Out Sundays, Cosmic Passport. Both shows start at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time, at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Newnan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us. We are also live on KTLK, The Fringe.fm, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, and if you listen in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Herquitaliancy. Herquitaliancy is the password. Be sure to use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night, right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter, at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. If you want to connect live with me during the show as well, give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can tune us in on TuneIn, download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month, rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. You can also read up on the encounter online or watch great videos from UFO seekers and Contact TV. Everything at spacedoutradio.com. Our Keith Andrews is here for the first Friday of the month. It's his final appearance of 2017. Keith, thank you so much for a wonderful year and taking part in this show. Always a pleasure to have you on the air. Your next pit stop here will be on January 5th next year. Good to have you here, my friend.
Well, it's good to be here. It's I get an absolute kick out of the listeners, because the questions that come across, even if we're not on a given topic, sometimes you've got listeners that come in right out of left field with something completely unrelated, which is why I like watching the chat room myself. I still marvel at the fact that you can track more than one of them.
I gotta say, I gotta say this. I am having like a Groundhog Day kind of day. I mean, first, this dude from the Toronto radio station starts ripping my show. Okay? Or yeah. I should call it our show. Then, this guy out of nowhere hits on me, telling me I'm hot. And now, just now, I get this message from this guy on Facebook. You can tell if people know whether I'm on the air or not, or if they're actually listening, because if they're listening, they know that I'm kind of busy right now. But this guy, I'm not going to mention his name, sends me this message. He goes, "You're starting to grow on me. If you would do this for me, then my loyalty would be down for the same, because if it really happened to you, recognize it's real." And he sends me this quote that says, "Squad question, if you were killed tomorrow, I wouldn't come to your funeral because I'd be looking for the MFer who killed you. We ride together, we die together. Send this to everyone you care about, including me. If I don't receive one back, I understand. See how many times you get this back. If you get 13 plus, then you're real." Guess what? On my fake news and BS posturing that I've been doing recently, this guy is officially getting the boot from my Facebook, because I don't do crap like that. What is with people today? Honestly. What is with people today?
I've been asking that forever and a coon's age.
Yeah. Yep. I'm going to do the deed right now as we speak, because I really don't put up with this crap. And I hate this kind of crap that comes on. Yes. And next he'll be sending me stuff that tells me that if little Johnny doesn't get a certain amount of likes from Jesus, or Jesus isn't going to cure him. Yeah, see you, guy. You're off my Facebook now. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's like, that. Sucks to be you.
Yeah, and we're going to delete it. Honestly, it's horrible. Delete the conversation, because I don't have time for that crap. Seriously.
Well, the thing is, like I've been asked a number of times, and I've gotten very used to it. Well, how do I know you're real? How do I know what you're saying is accurate? And I'm like, well, you don't, but I can tell you one thing for absolute certain. I don't jump hoops for anybody. The fact of the matter is, I don't have a problem with trying to prove whether what I tell people is real, because I question whether it's real. So if somebody can figure out a way to prove it one way or the other, be my guest. The only thing I've got going for me now, because I spent decades trying to figure it out, but on my dad's deathbed, and, in all fairness, and I don't talk about this much, obviously, but in your opinion, Dave, if somebody's on their deathbed and they make a confession to you, do you put any weight behind it? Personally,
it would all depend who they are, where they worked. I think there's a lot of people when it comes to a deathbed confession, who want to get some things off their chest before they cross over to the other side, just in case they don't want to go on to that other side, just in case there's guilt involved. And I think leaving to go to the other side with a clear conscience is a fair enactment of someone who is dying.
Well, in my case, you get to figure this one out. Now, my dad and my parents tried forever to convince me that I was completely off my nut. That this was all great imagination, all this UFO stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The last verbal conversation I had with Dad, literally he told me, he says, look, I am sorry for trying for the last 50 years, telling you your memories are wrong, getting you to go look for help to sort them out. He says, all of your memories, and he went through literally the whole list, including my lab, the alien side of it, the paranormal events, every detail. He goes, all of these events are real. He said, I couldn't tell you before. Right. But he said, you need to know they're all real. Now, to me, this is somebody that has spent all of my life going, they're not real. You're remembering them wrong. The last verbal conversation I have, he comes out with that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for me, that was an awful, that was a heck of a, enough trying to convince people I'm not nuts. Right. But for the most part, when people are questioning whether or not you're real, quite frankly, they probably don't have the qualifications to figure it out anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing you got to look at, or that I suggest anybody in that position looks at, is that if somebody's questioning your veracity, as long as you know in your heart you're being honest, that's what you focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But, I do agree with you, especially about this issue of, I think you called it Groundhog's Day. Everything that can go wrong does go wrong, and at the worst possible moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I fully know what you're talking about. Let's move on to the questions, because I want to get back on topic here. Robin is asking, do you believe aliens created the Sumerians?
Well, technically the answer would be yes. And let's be clear. The only reason I call them aliens at all is because, well, frankly, before they came, the Earth wasn't here. So they built the Earth, then they built mankind, and that wasn't the only thing they built. But they put the planet together, then they built mankind. Okay, well, in all fairness, mankind is a accelerated genome. But the Sumerians were an evolutionary thing that happened because man was built. It wasn't so much they were built as Sumerians. The Sumerian side of it was the superculture that evolved as man evolved. So, did the aliens do it? Well, technically the answer would be yes. They did build mankind. But the culture and the philosophies of the Sumerians, that wasn't technically built by, or for that matter, guided by the off-worlders. It was simply something that evolved because of the if you will, algorithm that was used in the first place. Make sense?
Total sense. Let's move on. Craig is asking, we already asked the Zealots question. John is asking, I'm way behind here. Kit Kat is asking, what do you call it if you're laying on your stomach in bed and you are sleepy, when you feel a pressure pushing your neck down, bending and losing sight? And the only thing that she could remember when this happened to her is, Jesus will protect me. It didn't feel spiritual. This was Monday early morning, about 3 a.m. I would like to think, or she would like to think, that it was sleep paralysis, but she was on her stomach and felt her head being pressed down.
Well, even with sleep paralysis, that can happen, because if sleep paralysis doesn't always affect every muscle at the same time. So if the top of the neck muscles, and I'm just giving you what I'm going to have to call a theoretical explanation, I can't say for certain for obvious reasons, but if sleep paralysis does not take place all at once, and it doesn't always, then if the top of the neck freezes, if you will, before the bottom of the neck, the weight of the head will drop into the pillow. It'll feel like somebody pushing on the back of your head. But it still falls under the category. It would still be a case of sleep paralysis. Now, are there other possibilities? Certainly, but that one absolutely fits.
Well, she also says that she actually saw a UFO that night as well.
Which kind of leads in the direction of going sleep paralysis. It does kind of lend credence to that thought line in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, from my perspective, I can go all sorts of directions, but my personal choice at this point would be, since it does fit the bill of sleep paralysis and the sighting of the UFO, it stands to reason that it fits together. Because I certainly don't feel there's anything dangerous going on.
Well, it reminds me of what happened to me just a couple of months ago, because that's what I had actually felt when I was last taken, was that I did feel pressure, like something was holding my head back.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's just it. And this is why I say it can be sleep paralysis. And especially if you've seen the UFO to start with, the odds are it was. Which, by the way, goes hand in hand with the other side of it. AKA, odds are pretty good that there was some sort of an abduction that took place at the same time. Now, bear in mind, I shouldn't call it an abduction, because they don't always take people off the planet. They don't always take people anywhere. That's just the reality of it. But the reason for the sleep paralysis, especially if the person's got their head facing one direction, you paralyze them, they can't look the other way.
Let's get to Elizabeth's question. She is asking, did the dinosaurs give the planet up for colonization to more mammalian species so that colonization from Sirius B and other places could happen?
No. I guess we should go into a little bit more of that.
Yeah, maybe a few more words there.
No, the dinosaurs, essentially what it really boiled down to is this. Because oxygen levels dropped, animals across the board became smaller. Because the temperature started to climb due to tectonic and atmospheric destabilization, it opened all sorts of doors up for evolution to take a different pattern. Now, some of the dinosaurs did evolve into sentient races, which are still on this planet, but they're not on the surface. Most of the dinosaur species just up and simply froze to death, and that was the end of it. Froze to death or starved to death, depending. But there was no cognitive process of the dinosaurs giving up the planet. Okay. It's kind of like decades ago, I actually saw in the global news, I think it was called, in one of the newspaper, one of the rags, it came up with a new theory on how the dinosaurs died out. They were taken to Mars. You know, which I kind of looked at it a little odd. But no, they did not. The dinosaurs did not give it up. It was literally an evolutionary shift that happened that caused such a massive drop in the temperature that they had and a massive drop in the atmosphere that made the dinosaurs end up smaller and eventually evolve into other things. But it was by no means a voluntary exodus.
All right, let's move on. Joe is asking, the consortium, is it a government and federation like an alliance?
Ultimately, yes. Basically, the consortium, when we talk about the Council of 12 that run the consortium, not every race has a member on the council, on the final 12, but there is only ever one member of any given race on the Council of 12. Okay, you never get two Pleiadians or two, two Orions. There's never two on the council. Okay, and the reason for that is to avoid racial superiority at the highest level. Because the idea is their idea of the council is a unilateral, equal council, like equal representation across the board. The people that are sitting on the council are the ones that are the most open-minded and the most fair-minded, that look at not just what the race is, what the other races are, but they look at maintaining an equality between them as far as what the laws are, what the rules are. None of them are geared towards making allowances. Oh, you're this race, therefore you can get away with X. You're this race, you can't. That is not the way the consortium works. But ultimately, it is a governing body.
Makes sense. Absolutely. Let's head over to Twitter here for a second. Andrew is saying, back in the day, Richard Nixon created a stir when he offended the nation of Brazil by waving the AOK sign from the steps of Air Force One. What are some of the cultural faux pas situations that you've run into with different alien species?
Well, and I presume, we're talking about when you meet somebody and you just, shall we say, overstep. The first thing, if you take a look at, let's just take the Srazazians. Never, ever, ever do you walk up on the dais when you're on the twin dais to talk to them, ever, unless you're planning on being dead. Because they don't tell you to stop. You hit the first step and they'll kill you, just on principle. And they don't care what race you are. Okay. A massive one for humans anyway is you never accept a Techlec's invitation to dinner unless they specifically tell you that they are serving XYZ and you're not on that list. Because if it can get you killed if you do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One of now, when you're looking at, there are certain derogatory things that you can say to people. There's all kinds of them that you can come up with. But when it comes to, the Pleiadians, it is a massive, if you will, faux pas to address any of them unless you are in a council meeting itself, none of them hold a better position. So nobody is classified in what would be called a CEO. They're always treated as you're just Bob, you're just John. Your position is never referred to unless you ask what they do.
I can see that. So, are there things that aliens do here that they have to get used to when they come down because they may be out of line?
Oh, absolutely. Let's take a look at some of the stronger ones. Okay. We take a look at, for instance, the Thrazazians. Okay, that's for the people that don't know, that's the 7.5 to 8.5 foot reptilians. They're built with armor. They are trained extensively on how to handle people because they are so strong they will dislocate your shoulder by just touching it because of the level of their strength. Okay, when you're dealing with the amoeboids, they have to be taught just because you can get in there does not mean you're allowed. Okay. Needless to say, the amoeboids have a tendency on pretty much anywhere of exploring inside electrical conduits because that's how they operate. When they want to do something, they will go wherever they need to. Okay. Pleiadians have to get used to the idea that reading people's minds is not considered good form. Okay, because for them, that's their way of communicating. Okay, these are just some of the more obvious ones. When you take a look at the Brahmin, the one thing they're taught is you don't kill somebody because they said something wrong. This is just bad form. Okay, because in their eyes, if you insult them, they're allowed to rip your lips off, usually from the back of your head. But that's because they're combat-oriented.
I love Eric's question here, my friend. He is asking, did the reptilians keep dinosaurs as prey animals to hunt and maybe test themselves by?
I guess technically we could say yes to a degree, not on a global scale. Some of the reptilians and the Thrazazians and the Teklek were both prime examples of it. It's not so much they kept them to use, so much as they were here, and therefore it was convenient. Okay, it's kind of like, that's where the animals are. If you on Earth, if humans want to go shark fishing to test your manhood like they used to do, I don't know if they still do, but decades back in Borneo, the way of proving you were a man, the coming of age ceremony was to go out and kill a shark with a knife. Okay, same idea. If you're a young Teklek, that puts you 3.5 feet long. Okay, you want to go out and test your ability? Go out and bring down an ankylosaurus. That's a challenge. But did they pen them? No. Didn't need to. There were so many of them. You just go down and work with it. Make sense?
Well, it makes. I'm thinking about that because it does make sense for training. Better to get trained up with what is happening here on Earth, so that way they know what they are dealing with, right?
Exactly. You go to train where if you're learning how to defend yourself, go after something that can fight back. For instance, mankind came up with the brilliant idea that sport hunting means go out with a big gun and shoot something from 3/4 of a mile away and call that a sport. Okay, the off-worlders go, if we're going sport hunting, okay, it's got claws, I got claws, we're good. Okay, they call it an even fight. They set it up as an even fight, as it were. But that's one of the things that you find with some of these races. Yes, might is an important factor. And just like in nature, just like with mankind, people look for ways to stand out. And that's just one of the ways. Make sense?
Totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. I'm just scanning around for other questions from the chat rooms here. Andrew is asking on Twitter, what about different alien forms of entertainment? Can you talk about examples that you've experienced? Do they have music, drama, dance?
The answer would be yes, yes, and a whole pile of yes. The thing is, they have, they certainly have, depending on the race, they definitely have all of the cultural amenities. The biggest difference is, like, when you take some of the more volatile ones. If you take, when you're talking about entertainment, when we talk about dance, you take a look at at a lot of the various Lycan, their idea of dance is far closer to combat without drawing blood than it is a standard dance routine. Okay, it's sort of a cross, for them it's sort of a cross between combat maneuvers and parkour, which for people that don't know what that is, that's your wall runners. Right. Music, some of the music that these guys produce is absolutely incredible. You want to hear something really kind of weird, you listen to some of the web weavers, and the thing that you find, like the arachnids, when they're playing music, what most people don't realize is every one of the threads in a spider's web has a different tone. And these guys have figured out how to turn that into a phenomenal orchestra. And of course, bearing in mind they've got 8 legs to work with, 2 of which they stand on, the other 6 they use. You know, it can create quite the music. When you're looking at drama, and yes, there are some people out there that'll say it's not drama, it's drama. You know, but there are various different, because they've got their own cultures, they've got their own histories, their own myths, their own religions. Drama it's as varied as it is for mankind. And quite often, the stories are done via a form of dance. Like, if you want to see something, you want to watch something that's really incredible to watch, and I really hope that some of the people get the opportunity, is you watch if you watch an amoebic, what amounts to an amoebic opera. Now, I'm not a good one for opera with humans because the tone is off. Like, it's the wrong tone for my own ears. But with these guys, it is literally a work of art, because it's not just a case of them singing, it's a case of the way they sing it's kind of like an interactive singing. One makes a note, the other one bounces the note off it to create a third. And I literally mean that you can actually see the sonic impacts. You know, so they certainly have their own, their own array.
We're going to change. Okay, go on. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to get to Wyatt's question next, but if you're not done, that would be.
Oh,
cool.
No, absolutely. I mean, I can go in.
All right, well, let's go to Wyatt's question then. And this is a little off topic. He just lost his longtime dog Agnes on Monday, and he's having struggles with that. But he says he's been told things about her by friends, but the problem is the silence that he is dealing with. Does everybody experience this, or has the universe been quiet the last week or so because he did not perceive this because of his grief? And how does he cope with that silence?
Well, yeah, you're right. It's a little off topic, and that's okay. This sort of thing I have no problem with. Number one, let's be very clear, my sincere condolences. Losing a fuzzy friend It's like burying your own fuzzy kid. And has the universe been silent? No. But because of the grief over the loss, your focus is more on what's gone missing it's not so much the lack of the universe making noise, it's the lack of the fuzzy munchkin that is causing the problem. And, you will get past it. Again, do not let anybody tell you that there's a time limit that, it's been X number of days, you should get over it. Scrap that. Doesn't work that way. You'll get over it when you're ready. However, something that will help is if you focus on the time you had with him or her, and if you will, understand he has gone, the munchkin has gone to a place where, frankly, people he knows, be they animal, be they friend, be they human, doesn't matter. That's where he went because everybody goes the same place. Okay. And is he happy that he was with you? The answer is definitively yes. Quite frankly, it was a question of his body just wouldn't hold out anymore. One thing that has helped some people is not getting a replacement. Give yourself a reasonable amount of time that you feel is okay. And many people find that having another fuzzy friend in the house, it doesn't take away from the fact that you lost the one. And it's not a replacement, but it does give you something mobile to focus on. But there's no easy answer on how anybody mourns. Just understand, you could have a shrine in your house, and it won't stop the munchkin from moving forward. Does that make sense from your standpoint, Dave?
Makes total sense. Makes total sense. And Wyatt, I hope that helps you out there. Let's go over to Joe's question. He is saying, Keith, from what you have learned, how many of the alien races actually eat people, and how do we identify them when we see them?
I was going to go with, if they're chewing on your arm, it's not a good sign. But, in all fairness, it's actually a very small percentage of, I can't give you an exact number, but it is, you're more than welcome, Wyatt. Glad to help. It's an issue of, it's a very small number, and especially when we're dealing with the ones from the Galactic Consortium, they've been told outright, and it is monitored, you're not allowed to eat the allies. Okay, this is just bad form. But the easiest way to, unfortunately, we know for a certainty that the Teklex will eat people, whether they're alive or dead. Teklex are the 4.5 to 5.5 foot raptor looking. The carnivorous based races do tend to eat whatever's available. Sruzazians, yes, they'll eat people, but they don't eat them in front of other people, first of all, and they certainly don't go out of their way to collect them. But if you're starving, you eat what's available. And if a Sruzazian is starving and the human was with him to start with, Sruzazian didn't kill him, he waited for him to die. But then you got to understand their whole culture about somebody dropping dead. But there's very few that will target people. Quite a number that will do so. Like if you pick a fight with them and you end up dead, well, why waste good food? But it's except with, like I said, with the techs, that's where it becomes an issue of they deliberately look for them. This is why I've always held you don't ask to go to dinner.
Andrew has a couple of questions. His first one is, Keith, have you ever been allowed access to any alien libraries? And if so, do they have them? What are they like? How do they store information?
The answer would be yes. I have been allowed to get into some of them. Depending on the race, there are three that are just fantastic. The Vulcans actually, and before people jump on that, no, they are not these funny humanoid-looking people with pointy ears. Vulcans are actually crystalline people. And they literally use crystals as a memory bank. I've actually got the schematics for one in my head. I haven't built it yet, but I do have the schematics for one, just for a minor one. I've also looked at the old the old Elfid ones, which are quite literally those. Everybody has actually been in an Elfid library. Everybody on this planet has been in one, because quite frankly, the planet is one, and you just have to learn how to read it. Okay, humans look at libraries thinking that it's a bunch of books. The other one, and the consortium uses this one, is the holographic interfaces. Okay, Pleiadians use genetics. They use the triple DNA. Okay, they're not the ones that built this, but they certainly figured out how to read it. Okay, and the information contained is one of the biggest reasons why I am a proponent of, when we talk about is global peace possible, the answer is yes. Is it preferable to war? Contrary to many people's belief, yeah, it really is, because it does more for the economy than anything else does. But humans haven't evolved to the point of figuring that one out yet. So, I mean, a lot of the libraries, depending on where you go, some of the weapons that you look at, if you look in the military libraries, the military, when you take a look at, what the heck are they called? Star Command. And yes, they are another race, or not another race, or they're a detachment of the consortium of the Galactic Federation. They have a staggering array of information on various weapons, right down, from everything from planet busters all the way down to coagulators. And you really don't want to get hit with either one of those. But understand, I look at libraries myself, and this is why I've been allowed into a lot of them, because I don't look at them as, how can I use this to make a better weapon? I look at it from the standpoint of, how can I take this information and understand how that race is thinking to find a balance point for another race, which is, frankly, what I tend to do. I could go on, but I think we've probably got 17 different questions still lined up.
Exactly. Let's get to BTO's question. Keith, what do you think about the Galactic Consortium? Pardon me, sorry, just got to try and translate here. Do you know what the Galactic Consortium feels could happen within the last month of 2017 here?
Well, oddly enough, they're really not that overly concerned with it. Understand, from their standpoint, they look at this from a decades and centuries long issue. The reason they're around so much right now is because mankind is on the verge of starting their own version of World War III. And from a historical standpoint, it's not so much they're aware of which way it's going to go, so much as they're very fascinated by the evolutionary process that's going to take place as it makes up its mind which way it goes. There's a lot more. This is one of the reasons why abductions have increased, is because they're checking the impacts on the subquantum level in order to see what is happening to the DNA superstructure of mankind during this kind of negative interaction and on the planet itself. Okay, but if people are asking, are we going to war? Well, from their standpoint, you guys don't go to war in the first place. Mankind has never had a functional war. in their eyes. But understand, this is not to say they approve of war, so much as the body count is never high enough to qualify as anything but a border squabble. Which I think is where people are actually looking for some sort of insight into what man is up to. And the fact is, and this I will say to everybody that's listening, and for pity's sake, spread the word, if you don't pull the trigger on a gun, you won't have a war. Okay, and I mean a gun, a missile silo, whatever. And that applies to everybody, every nationality, okay, regardless of what people are saying. If people don't push the button, you don't get the war. Okay, now am I expecting that to really have an impact? No, but it is a nice thought.
Let's move on. Kit Kat is asking, Keith, will you put in a request for a meetup with her implanters and allow her to remember? She has some questions that need answers.
Well, I can certainly put that in. Now, do understand, I am not the one that makes the final decisions, but something to keep in mind is to thank them for permitting you to remember in a way you can handle. Because what you think you can handle and what really works out aren't necessarily the same thing. But absolutely stay focused on that, and politely put, I'll do what I can. Do I have final say? Absolutely not.
All you can do is put in the request.
Which is all she was asking, which is great.
For sure. For sure indeed. Jeffro is asking, Keith, there doesn't seem to be many reports of crop circles in recent years. Do they still exist, and what do they mean exactly?
Well, ultimately, they're indicators. Do they still exist? The answer is yes. But because of the proliferation of humans actually looking into so much and paying so much attention to what's going on, it's a little hard to drop into a wheat field and drop a crop circle. But the purpose for them, depending on what it was, sometimes it's a marker of what they're looking for. I was shown one that was very clearly a jump point. Okay, so if you're going by the planet and you spot this thing, you knew exactly where the next jump point was. A jump point, for those people that don't know, is a point where where it's at the lowest overall gravitational field, where it's safe to jump inside the solar system to get to another jump from a faster than light perspective to a different location from inside the solar system. Okay. But usually they're messages of one form or another. Sometimes I've seen some that were literally, it was almost like somebody was dropping a part of a formula on the table.
That's what I was going to ask. If they were some sort of mathematical calculation of direction or latitude, longitude, or whatever it could be.
And some of them are, but you got to remember, usually it's triphasic. What I mean by triphasic is, and it's something that people haven't looked into, I don't think. If you take a look at crop circle A, B, and C, and let's say they're all on the 42nd parallel. Okay, every one of them on the 42nd, right? And you tend, when you overlay them, you get the full word. Okay, you get the full image. But I don't know if anybody has ever actually done the research on that. But that's triphasic writing. And it's a fascinating way of writing that will give a different message on the individual, a different message lined up, one message on the individual parts, one message when you line them up side by side, and one when you overlay them. Okay, and quite often that's much more accurately when you're talking about leaving notes, that's how they do it. But more often than not, the individual ones are directional, and it's usually not on a grid, not on a 2-dimensional grid, but on a 3. Okay. Primary, it's a 3-dimensional grid that they work with. Not this neat idea of a 4-dimensional.
Kit Kat is asking, if the universe is a construct of our own personal perception, why would the negativity be so strong in her own personal universe?
Well, because the universe isn't a construct of one person's outlook, would be the first problem. So it is the universe is modified by the neural net, which applies to every living organism. Okay, and bear in mind, rocks are living. So the reason it's negative, one of the biggest reasons why it would come up negative around the querent is being empathic. She's going to pick up on the negativity, on the stronger emotions of everybody. And if you're empathic and you're watching the negative news, or you're reading the negative news all the time, even if it's on Facebook and you're watching this sort of thing, it's going to draw that negative focus to you, and that will make it stand out. Okay, it's not a question of it being a figment of imagination. It's actually something that has been proven to work. But that's what would cause it, because it's not just a construct of the one individual, it's a construct of everybody. This is why I've always held that reality is a matter of will. Okay, it's what you're aiming for coupled with what everybody else is trying to do. If you work together, you get staggering results. Picture, the way I like putting it is, picture trying to move an 8-foot table that is just loaded full of stuff. And you put one person on either end. If you're working together, you can move a staggering amount. If you're fighting with each other, you're going to dump everything off the table. And then we get back to the Flat Earth Society thing. Just had to throw that in there.
Sorry, go ahead.
Not a problem.
Shar is asking, Keith, she really believes that they input thoughts. Why do you not when they do in other things?
Well, I'd have to, and this is going to sound a little bit evasive, but it's a question of which thoughts we're referring to and who. The point being that mankind has one thing going for them, and that is they have the ability to choose whether they act on whatever thought they get. Okay, now, clearly when we're doing mental overlays, which the Greys are famous for, clearly they're implanting thoughts. Okay, so I'm certainly not going to say they don't. But am I going to say that the aliens on the whole are controlling mankind? Well, the reason being because I frankly have talked to enough of them to realize that you cannot have a planet evolve as a planet if you're telling the race how to actually think. What they do is they do their best to teach people how to think, not what. And that is something that mankind's society has to come to understand. Okay. And, it's not a question of whether I believe that they put thoughts in. It's a question of the motivation behind it. But they don't, quite frankly, control what humans think. Because, frankly, if they were controlling what humans think, humans wouldn't be wondering whether aliens were here. They also wouldn't be considering if they were to actually do that, you wouldn't have people shooting each other because their color was wrong. And by the way, yes, the Greys did go through that, eons back, where they used to shoot at each other because they were the wrong color, or the wrong eye ridge. Okay, all races pretty much go through this same sort of thing. It's just mankind is at that point.
Very strange. Understand? Very strange. It's very strange indeed. Dennis is asking, how do we account for human mutilation cases, Keith?
For human mutilation cases?
Yeah, where aliens take us and mutilate people.
Well, first and foremost, in all fairness, I haven't heard of a case of that. I've heard of the cattle mutilations. But that said, it would stand to reason it follows the same reasoning. Okay, if we're dealing with human mutilations, understand aliens see humans, depending on the alien, but on the whole, as another race. And if you're dealing with an alien, and I am talking specifics, not racial, that has decided that humans are no more important than animals, then taking parts of the human and leaving the rest behind would make sense. Because they treat them the exact same way. They see humans, those type of people, see humans as just another lower life form, and they can do with them what they will. Okay. And I realize mankind doesn't necessarily like to hear about it, but that's, this is where that kind of mutilation would come from. Hope that makes sense.
I know Butch Witkowski from UFO Cop has, on the East Coast, dealt with alien mutilation cases.
Right.
So, I'm sure it's happening. Maybe not everywhere.
Oh, I have no doubt it's happening. It's just the first I've heard of it. And do understand I don't watch the news, so I'm kind of out of the loop on that one. But it does stand to reason that it would be done for exactly the same reason. Humans are just another life form with different qualities. This sounds really bad coming from from human standpoint, this sounds really bad. But there's no difference between the use of cutting up a human as compared to cutting up a cow or a monkey or a stalk of grass. It's just simply another life form. Due to be dissected, due to be studied, and what you don't need, you throw out. Okay, that's what that seems to boil down to. Unless, of course, you're dealing with somebody that's a little more on the volatile side, and then they do it because, well, frankly, the liver tastes better and everything else, so that's all I want. Also known as fast food shopping. But that's where that would come in.
My friend, it is that time of the night. Want to say sorry to the people that we didn't get the questions to, but...
Well, we can always put it to you this way. For the ones that didn't get their questions answered, absolutely drop me a line. Okay, either on Facebook, on, at Inner Voice Enterprises at yahoo.ca, or get a hold of Dave. I'm pretty certain Dave will pass it on.
Mr. Keith, thank you so much for being with us in 2017 and making this a great year. We will see you in 2018, my friend.
Absolutely, we will. Thank you so much. It has been a ride and a half once again. And I'll tell you, thanks so much to the audience.
Yeah, they're wonderful. They're wonderful. There are nobody like me, according to Toronto radio guy who isn't really a radio guy. But we'll get there nonetheless. Keith, you hold on. I'm going to wrap this thing up. Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking us in the background. Tomorrow night on the program, Joe Roop makes his debut as Spaced Out Saturdays host. He gets going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. And then on Sunday, it's Elizabeth Anglin's Cosmic Passport. I want to say thank you to my great team for helping me put this show together as I head off into the wilderness to find my Zen and my Chi for the weekend. I'll be back on Monday. My guest, Josh Okerson, Talking to God. It's going to be a fun one indeed. I want to say thank you to everyone on Twitter for your tweets, helping share the show. Thank you to everyone participating in the chat rooms. All of you listening at home or in your car or at work. Great to have you with us. Great that you're sharing our profiles, letting people know what we do on a daily basis. Because together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you on Monday. Once again, don't forget, follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Dave Scott, SOR, Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show, and our brand new YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Have a good weekend, everyone. I'm out. Good night.